The Veltari Grand Colosseum had stood for 600 years. 600 years of champions. 600 years of blood and glory and screaming crowds packed into its obsidian tiers. Warriors from 47 known species had fought on its sands, Gorak bruisers with 4 arms and skin like poured concrete, Sethri vipers with reflexes that blurred into invisibility, the great lumbering Drak KL whose very footsteps cracked the arena floor. None of them had ever made the crowd go completely, utterly silent. Until today. Kale stood at the observer's rail on the upper tier, gripping the carved stone with all 6 fingers of his primary hand. His species, the Veltari themselves, prided themselves on composure. On measured analysis. On the precise, academic detachment that had made them the dominant power in this quadrant of the galaxy for 3 centuries. His secondary hand was trembling. Below, on the sand, the human woman called Maya was still standing. She should not have been standing. Kale had studied the pre-match intelligence files with the thoroughness his rank demanded. 32 years old. 167 centimeters. 68 kilograms. Former soldier of something called the 75th Ranger Regiment on a small, aggressively self-destructive planet called Earth. Humanity had only been inducted into the Galactic Compact 14 months ago, and already they had sent a representative to the Grand Tournament, not because anyone expected them to win, but because the Compact required all member species to participate. A formality, the Veltari High Council had said. A ceremony for the newcomers. A ceremony. Kale watched Maya pull a dislocated shoulder back into its socket with a sound like a gunshot, grimace once, and then roll her neck until it cracked 3 times. Her opponent, Garath of the Sethri, lay unconscious in the sand 15 meters away. He was a 6-time tournament finalist. His venom alone could stop a Veltari heart in 4 seconds. He weighed 412 kilograms. He had lasted 9 minutes against her. The fight had not started well for the human. Kale had been watching with mild professional interest when Garath first coiled for his signature opening strike, a full-body lunge that had ended 17 careers. The human had no business surviving it. The Sethri's mass alone should have broken both her legs on impact. Instead, she had done something that made no physical sense. She dropped. Not backward. Not sideways. Down, into the sand, spine flat, hands already moving, and Garatha's crushing momentum had carried him over her by centimeters. Before he could recoil, she had her legs wrapped around his neck in a configuration that his anatomy was never designed to resist. Kale had pulled up his datapad immediately, searching for the technique. Jiu-jitsu. Guard position. Triangle choke variant. He kept reading. And reading. Humans had developed hundreds of these systems. Centuries of them. Wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai, Judo, Sambo, Kali, Silat, entire sciences of destruction built and refined and stacked on top of each other across millennia of conflict. Not because they were the strongest species. Not because they were the fastest. But because they were creative. Because they lost fights and then thought about why and then invented solutions. Because apparently, the human response to being weaker than everything around them was to become obsessively, encyclopedically good at killing things anyway. Garath had thrown her off eventually. His raw power made the choke unsustainable. He had slammed her into the arena wall hard enough to crack the stone. She had gotten up. He slammed her again. She had gotten up again, spitting sand, and this time when he came for her she did something no one in the Colosseum had ever seen. She let him grab her. The crowd had roared, thinking it was over. The Sethri's grip was legendary, designed by evolution to constrict and crush. But Maya had not tried to pull free. She had twisted into the grip, using his own locked arm as a lever, and with a series of movements so fast and precise that Kale's eye could barely track them, she had turned 412 kilograms of apex predator into a projectile aimed at the sand. The sound when Garath hit the ground had reverberated through the entire Colosseum. The crowd had gone silent. Not the silence of shock. The silence of an entire species, multiple species, suddenly recalibrating what they thought was possible. Cale descended the stairs slowly after the medical teams carried Garath out, making his way to the competitor's tunnel. His rank granted him access that others did not have. He told himself he was going for professional reasons. For his report to the High Council. He was lying to himself and he knew it. Maya was sitting on a stone bench in the tunnel, a medic wrapping her right hand where two knuckles had been split open. She had a bruise spreading across her jaw that was already darkening toward purple. Her left eye was swollen half shut. She was eating something from a small metal container, something pressed and rectangular that she consumed with the mechanical efficiency of someone fueling an engine rather than tasting food. She looked up when he approached. "Combat Observer Cale," she said. Her voice was steady. Not triumphant. Not even particularly tired. Just present. "I saw you in the upper tier. You had your datapad out during round 2. He stopped. "You noticed that?" "I noticed things." She took another bite of the rectangular food. "You were looking up the triangle choke." "I was." He paused, studying her. "You were watching the crowd." "I was watching everyone." A small, controlled smile crossed her face. "Old habit." Cale clasped his hands behind his back, a Velthary gesture of formal inquiry. "I have been asked to compile a report on humanity's combat potential for the High Council. I would ask you a question, if you are willing." Maya shrugged her uninjured shoulder. "Ask." "How?" he said. And then, because he was a precise person who disliked vague questions, he continued, "How does a species your size, with your physical limitations, develop this? The Sethri have been warriors for 4,000 years. The Drak-Kal for 6,000. Humanity has had faster, stronger, larger enemies your entire evolutionary history. How did you compensate?" Maya was quiet for a moment. She set down the metal container and looked at her wrapped hand. "We died," she said simply. "A lot. For a long time." She flexed her fingers experimentally. "Every time we lost a fight, someone survived it and thought about what went wrong. Every time an enemy was bigger, we figured out leverage. Every time an enemy was faster, we figured out anticipation. Every time we couldn't win straight, we figured out angles." She looked up at him. "We've been the underdog for about 200,000 years. That's a lot of time to practice." Cale processed this. "You consider yourself underdog still? Honestly?" She picked up her food again. "We always will. It's how we're wired. The moment we stop thinking we're the smallest thing in the room is the moment we get complacent." She paused. "That's when humans get dangerous. Not when we're winning. When we're losing and we know it and we decide it doesn't matter." Cale stood there for a long moment. In 600 years of grand tournament history, no first-time competitor from a newly inducted species had ever advanced past the first round. Maya had 3 more rounds to go. "I will be watching," he said finally. She nodded, unbothered. "I know." He turned to leave, then stopped. "The technique. At the end. What was that called?" Maya tilted her head slightly, and for just a moment there was something behind her eyes that was older than her 32 years, something patient and calculating and quietly, terribly confident. "Haraigashi," she said. "Hip sweep. It's about 400 years old." She paused. "We have much newer ones." Cale walked back up the stairs to his observation post. He filed his report to the High Council that evening. It was 37 pages long. The summary was 4 words. "Do not underestimate them."